Welcome back to Can We Have a Conversation? I'm here with Dr. Michael Connor. He is an author. He is a professor, educator, psychologist, and he is an expert in this field on fatherhood. He's a father, which is very important.
Yes.
A lot of times we see psychologists write books about fatherhood, but they're not fathers.
Correct.
Or even if they write about parenting, they're not parents. They go by a lot of case studies and research. We always hear about what's not working. We hear about, the negativity of fathers not being engaged. We hear about, men being fearful of trying to take their responsibilities, or their deadbeat dads. But this segment of the show, I want to talk about what is it that we can do as fathers to be more engaged with our children, and why is it important?
I like that. I like that question and the way you've entered the conversation. I anticipated when I was working with men in the program that I was doing that there would be a lot of resistance. And in fact, there wasn't. That essentially what I figured out after a while was be quiet and stop talking with other folks, talk with the men. Mm-hmm. And essentially what I learned from them was they were not quite sure what to do. And rather than take a chance and making an error, they would sit back, be quiet, etc. But when given direction and some ideas about what to do, they jumped in it. It was amazing watching that. So in many ways, what I would throw out would be that if we give an opportunity, give them some directions. It means you have to know what you're doing too if you want to lead this, and then reinforce them. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how well it works. The other piece that becomes important is what are their stereotypes as to what they think men do, what men are about. And in my bias, I think the number one thing we do is raise our kids. Everything else kind of falls by the wayside in terms of importance. Doesn't mean you don't do other things, but it means the primary thing that you are going to do is be a father. That means there's a child involved, and there's a child that needs you, that wants to engage, will be there, and will give you a lot of feedback, as long as we listen to it. And I found the activities we did, as an example, so we'd have I encouraged the men to bring the kids with them. And both the mothers and fathers would be anxious with this because they've got a toddler, a preschooler. They know they're going to lose interest, be bored, and they're going to want to walk around, etc. And I said, yeah, that's age appropriate. That's what I would expect them to do. So no, don't say no to them. Don't try to restrain them. Let them be here and do what they want to do. And this becomes the first. And I'm not saying that you can go home and run amok at home, but this is what kids are supposed to do. Let the kids be kids. This is normal behavior for a 2-year-old, for a 3-year-old, for a 4-year-old, etc. So that told me that I needed to impart to the men what's normal behavior. What does that look like? What can you expect of a 2-year-old, of a 3-year-old, of a 5-year-old, etc. And if you wanted the child to do something differently, how do you get them to do it differently? And it was really easy because all you do is direct them.
Wow.
So you're 2 years old or 3 years old, let me make it more appropriate, so you're 4-year-old, and your dad and I are having a conversation about some things, and for now you have a book, colors, and you're busy. I already predict that's going to last maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and then you want to do something else, and very quickly you want to get up and move around. Well, as long as there's nothing in here that you can hurt yourself with, that's okay with me. And if I notice that you are being kind of restless and I got some things ready, I'll simply take you by your hand and take you over here and said, would you try this? But to have things, if I know what's age appropriate, I have things ready for you to engage. And when you're done with that, because again, the attention span is about 3 to 5 minutes, then we do something else. No need to yell, to scream, to raise your voice, to get angry about anything. Kids, it's fascinating to me to see parents get upset with kids who are acting like kids.
Right.
I mean, they're doing normal, and the parents are doing strange things.
Right.
And I would see that primarily out in public. So you're running late from work or whatever you're doing. This is moms and dads. You need to stop at the market to get something to eat, and your child is not on that page with you. Wants to play with this, wants that, wants a piece of candy, etc. And instead of doing it in a more pro-social manner, our parents tend to get angry. And I would always say, no, either do not set that up. That is, make sure the child is eaten before you go to the market, and maybe you have a sandwich instead of rushing around. So the child has eaten. Go to the market then for tomorrow or the next day, get the food and get out. Don't be bribing the kids. Don't be yelling at them. Don't be snatching them. They're acting normal, and you set that up. So if you want changes, and changes has to start with you.
Right. You know, one of the things you said is something that you said in the earlier show, and I just want to go back. It talks about illiteracy and not being able to read, and that's really critical when it comes to reading about some things that can help you become a better father.
That's right.
Or you know, now you can go on Google, you know, and just Google certain things, and I mean, because fatherhood, motherhood, it's not something that you inherit.
Correct.
I mean, there's no real perfect book in this. It's a hit and miss. I mean, regardless, whatever color, whatever culture, whatever city, whatever country, you have to learn. One, I mean, because I have 3 kids. Well, I have 1 adult and 2 kids.
Okay.
But the thing is, every one of them are different.
That's right.
And so what I did for my oldest doesn't work for my middles.
Correct.
And it definitely doesn't work for my youngest.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
and so
that's critical.
That's very critical. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yes. The mistake that parents make is, and I think this is a really common one, and I'm very proud of myself. I treated my kids all the same. Well, then you mistreated them because they're not the same. Unless they're identical twins, you made a mistake. Rather, you want to get to know those kids, who they are, what they're about, etc. And the first child usually is the standard for subsequent children. So that means as other kids get left out, as you don't know them, you're treating them like their older brother or sister. So recognize that, and then come up with ideas about who are they, who is this middle child, who is the third child, who is that fourth child. How are they different in terms of personality, in terms of temperament, in terms of likes, dislikes, etc.? What information does that youngest child now have that the older child doesn't? Because the younger child then was born into a home with older siblings, and there's other people who can teach. That older child didn't have that. So there's all these dynamics are at play that impact what that personality is and what comes out. And I see one of the big things that's problematic is the yelling and screaming at home. It drives me nuts. But to be laying here and I want the child to do something, then I need to get up and go redirect them instead of Mikey, stop! I said stop. That doesn't work. That's all, you're going to be yelling all day. There's so much easier ways to do. So long as you understand this is age appropriate. I can't expect that 3-year-old to act like they're 6. I can't expect that 6-year-old to act like they're 14. And parents do that all the time without even thinking about it. So we pull them to tasks, make sure that they are aware of what they're doing, what they're requiring of the child, and when you get that, what you want, reinforce it. Good job. And you don't have to jump up and down and go crazy or anything, but just a quiet, I really like the way you did that, or that was really nice, give me a hug. Those things work. The social reinforcers really are very powerful, and a lot of times we get out of that. Now, can I go a little controversial?
Go ahead.
Don't hit your kids. It doesn't work. All you do is teach them how to fight. And that's not what you want. So spanking does not work. And I'm amazed that the number of parents I would talk with, including those men of the cloth, I have a funny story to tell with this, we're talking about the Bible says, and you know what's coming next, and that doesn't appear in the Bible.
Right.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
You know that.
This does not appear it was in a poem that Samuel Butler wrote around 1639. But it was taken and used a lot. And I was doing a workshop in Atlanta, Georgia, some years ago. And this one preacher who seemed to have the biggest audience congregation indicated, I didn't say anything, but he brought this up about parents not be afraid to spank your children. And I thought, I wish you wouldn't. Everything else he was saying was right smack on the money. And I said, how am I going to handle that? Because I was coming on to speak right after him. And I said, I really don't want to put him down. I don't want to look like I'm putting him down. So I got to figure out a way how I can say this because I really want my message to get out there also. So I did. I just said, let me take a chance. I appreciate it. And I began by saying how much I appreciate his words. And And I too had done that, that I assumed, because I heard it so often, that this was in the Bible. So I went on a quest for a year. And it was an assignment in a class I was teaching, Fathers and Fathering, that I wanted the students to go through and find me this. And they couldn't. No version of the Bible, it just wasn't there. But Samuel Butler kept coming up. So I said, a lot of times we'll get information passed down for us that we don't have time, or it doesn't occur to us to check it. But what I found is this. Now, he was quiet after I finished what I was saying, and I said, I probably have lost a potential friend here, okay? Because there had to be 2,000 people in this auditorium at this point. In fact, the next day, he said he went home, prayed, and then he got busy. He went looking up his sources. And he turned around and said, Dr. Connor, come up here. And I said, uh-oh. Now this is a tall man who's looking over on me. And he said, I want you to know that I went home and I couldn't find that passage anywhere. So that means on Sunday, I'll be thinking about you, because I'm going to give a sermon that I will correct myself and I will apologize, because I've been saying this for a long while, and I will make sure that you get credited for this. I thought that was really fantastic.
Wow, yeah, absolutely.
It was fantastic. And what happened, he had more power with this audience than I did, because I was around for 2 more days. And once they went to check it out, they also found the same thing. And then they went back and asked would I repeat what I said after that, because they were so busy saying, that's not true, that's not true. They were not listening to other things that I said. So it was really good reinforcement. But even now, I still find when I talk about that, there's still resistance about that's there. And I'm thinking, it's mislearning. Trying to unlearn is really problematic, particularly when you're committed. Now, I grew up in a household that my mother spanked, my father didn't. And my father was much more powerful, much more productive
effective,
in terms of what he did. Yeah, it was amazing to me. And so later on, I shared that story with my mom and dad. And my mom's feelings got hurt. I said, Mom, I'm not putting you down. I think you did a great job. And I have to give you credit in terms of my enjoyment of reading. You taught me to read and gave other things. But I said, I need to be honest with you, because you're going to want my kids, my children, to stay with you. And it's something that you can't smoke around them, you can't yell, and you can't put your hands on them in terms of discipline. Do anything else you want, but I want to make sure that we understand that. And she asked why, and she listened, and she said, I hadn't thought about that. But I said, you read the Bible all the time. I welcome you to go take a look, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but go check it out. And from that day forward, it was amazing to me how she didn't smoke around my children. I don't think she smoked at all, period, after that. And she didn't yell. She was much of a yeller anyway, but she certainly would, at least for me.
Right.
She'd whip you on butt, but she didn't do that either. It was really powerful for me in terms of the feedback with that.
What do you think some of the alternatives are?
Thank you. Oh, we're talking about corporal punishment.
Right.
And so spanking, whipping, whatever words that we use, and I'm saying that it's not particularly effective and it's really problematic. The question is, so what do you do instead of? And that ties in when you want to know your child. So once again, you can't just pick this up someplace. You have to look at your child, and you got to be certain what's going on. So you can't give too many directions, because a child at 2 and 3 and 4 can't abstract. So they don't tie this event into this activity. So what you have to do then is use what I call hands-on parenting, and the easiest thing to do is to simply redirect. So I can go take you by your hand and have you come and do that, and not ask you, I'd like for you to put this puzzle together, or I'd like for you to read this book, or I'd like for you to do this counting over here. So I've removed you from the situation where I'm about to yell at you to go over to do something else. And the kids, if they have the relationship with it, do it automatically. And then I have to be careful to reinforce you. So I'll say, Stuart, I really like the way you put that together. I only wanted you to color using a lot of what I do is educational. So you colored one of the bells, and in fact there were 4 bells, and you colored all of them. You went way beyond. I'm really appreciative of that. I want you to know I saw that. That's taking the initiative, and I always like it when you take the initiative. So I give the child another lesson there where you can build on that with other things. And it's so much easier to do this if we got those kids trained that they do these things automatically. automatically say it takes me 2 years to train them, they're trained the rest of their lives. So it really does pay back, and that's what I found. Yeah.
Well, I know affirmation is big.
Yes. Yes.
I know, even us as men.
That's right.
Like to be affirmed.
Absolutely. Daily.
Daily.
Yeah.
And which kind of changed, as we talk about, manhood and men today, we don't get that affirmation.
That's right. That's right.
And that's something that we really need.
We don't get it, and we don't give it then.
That's right.
Because
And
it's two pieces of that. Yeah.
And so I when you talked about that was an affirmation.
Yeah.
And let's talk about how the child feels when they get that affirmation.
Oh wow, yes, yes. They don't feel like they've done something wrong because they haven't. Right? So the idea of redirecting is seen to be fine. I don't have to be yelled at or no penalties. There's nothing negative going on. And it's, honey, how about if you come over and do so and so? I need to be in that side of the house, and I need to keep my eye on you because I've got this book I got to read or something. And it's easy. It's second nature. They will go there because you did that. The background, you got them involved. It's very easy for them to do it. It's very, very simple. Let me give an example with an adult, because adults do this stuff all the time. I have my car, as an adult, have my car, and I'm rushing, and the garage is fairly narrow, so you really should be taking care. And I was careless this morning. I backed up and got a little too close to the side, so I scratched the mirror and something else, right? I will self-correct then, because apparently that mirror is really important to me. So I will then remember almost immediately that I can't turn that quickly. I need to go straight, and I'll do that. I got one piece of feedback, scrape the side, but I did it one time. With my kids, we don't listen to one trial learning. We'll yell and scream and yell and scream and hit and yell and scream and hit. And I keep saying, enough already. You treated your car better than you treated your kids.
Wow.
So what if I give you one thing to do, doesn't take any more energy than what you do with your car, but it self-corrects. And that is, again, you redirect. Your child, if you have a relationship, your child wants to be around you. They like to be affirmed. They will like for you to touch them, to say, honey, you're really sweet, I love you. Sons and daughters want that. Real men want to be told, I'm loved.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times we kind of miss that. So both our sons and our daughters get these affirmations, and pretty soon you'll find that they are doing better. You having out all day.
Yeah.
You've trained them already. That's the goal.
Yes.
I probably shouldn't use the word train, but yeah, that's what it is. You basically train.
Well, it is.
and
It
reinforce
is a training. I mean, because if they don't get it, they'll never have it.
Exactly.
And if they don't have it, they can never hand that over to the next generation. And that's probably some of the issues that we have
Thank
today.
you. Because the kids don't learn to think. The idea of, because some of the kids who are doing some violent things don't think about the consequences. They just, the situation presents itself, they will do it, and if they thought, I can't believe I did that, now my butt's in trouble. Yeah, it'd be nice if you thought ahead of time about that, but we haven't taught you to do that. And I'm thinking about some parents that just immediately you're sitting there acting like a 4-year-old and get slapped. It's like, wait a minute, no, that's not parenting. That's not what you want. It needs for you to relax. It needs for you to pull yourself back, think about what you want that child to do. Because hitting them is not going to get them what you may think it does, but it doesn't. It doesn't get what you want. So therefore, what's the better way to go? Well, if you have a relationship, your child wants to have interaction with you. Our kids want to be told, I love you, and then act like it, that you have value, and then demonstrate that. Once again, I think that's the most masculine thing that men can do in the roles of fathers, to express how much I care about you, how important you are to me, and why I'm wanting you to do this for these reasons. Not because I'm a bad guy, but for these other reasons. I want to protect you. That's what part of what my job is. If I get used to that, if I get men talking about that back and forth, that can be really powerful. Because again, when I'm hitting, all I'm doing is showing you that I can solve problems by hitting somebody. And nothing gets solved because somebody's going to be hurt with that. And it doesn't work. And we see kids all these beefs in the community that make no sense at all. But it's almost okay to do that. I can hit, I can scream, I can yell, I can shoot, I can do those other things. Nothing gets resolved with that.
It's funny that you say that, because you're right. When we look into our communities and society, that abuse that you're talking about of hitting and beating and carrying on, it creates resentment, it creates anger, and it carries on into other relationships.
Yeah, because that's normal.
Right.
Hitting is normal. Yelling, cussing is normal, and it's not. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for the person who's receiving it.
And so how do we change that mindset? I mean, if that's all you're used to seeing, and I've even heard some people say, well, that's the way I was brought up, and look at me.
Exactly.
I mean, it worked
all the time. And I would argue with them. I would suggest to them, yeah, you may have done all those other things, but at some point, you were loved also. You didn't get to be this good stuff in response only to the bad stuff. You saw other people doing this. It may have been a cousin whose parents treated him or her differently than your parents treated you. It may be a man who was around that wasn't yelling and screaming and being abusive. There were other things that happened. And my mother brought that up when I was talking, because her feelings got hurt, and she, when I was talking about I don't believe in corporal punishment, and she let me know that, well, I thought you did a good job, and I said, Mom, you did. But I said, I want you to hear, I didn't do what I'm doing right now because you hit me. I did it in response to that. But you did more than hit me. You understand? You taught me to read by that time I was 4. That was a daily activity that you taught me. You taught me my passion of fishing. My dad was not a fisherman. I still like to fish. And I got that from my mother and a couple of my aunts. You taught me to cook. I can be self-sufficient. I can cook a 5-8 course meal if I need to. I can get busy. I learn how to do that stuff.
Yes.
That's you.
Yes.
So I'm here for all this stuff, and I kept the part that I really wanted and the part that I think has been most powerful, and I put the stuff up that was less. That's not about you, that's about me. And she did come because her feelings were hurt now.
Absolutely.
And as well they should be. And I said, all I can tell you right now is that I love you, and I appreciate. I mean, I really don't pick up a book to read and don't think about you. I mean, that's how I picked up that skill. It took about a week, and she started watching me interact with my kids while we were back at home, and she said, I got it. Your kids are mild-mannered, they're not yelling and screaming, and you're not yelling. You've got other kids in the family who are running around the house, playing next to the playground, etc. And I noticed you just look at your kids, and they get in line. They're what they're supposed to. I said, yeah, that works really well for me, and it worked for them. And again, they pass that on to their kids.
Right.
So the grandkids also have not been hit.
Well, and that is always the expectation. Is to become better than our parents. We should always improve.
Yes, there's room to grow. Yes.
We should not regress.
That's right.
But we should progress.
Exactly, absolutely. And attend to what we're doing, because what I'm saying here is, if in fact the hitting is working for you, I can't imagine it, but in this hypothetical, they say it's working for you, then you gotta. I mean, working by definition means you're not using it anymore, because if I reach out and hit you because you did this given behavior, and you never do that behavior again, that means I'm not hitting you.
Right.
So that means you've curtailed and cut down my hitting also. So everybody comes out ahead. But the goal is, let's get rid of this to begin with. If I'm close to you, I don't want you to be hurting. I want you to be learning. And there's a different quality with that.
We're getting close to the end of the show.
Wow.
I know, but I'm gonna have you back again.
Yes, please.
But one thing I want to just give an analogy of. I'm a Marine.
Okay.
And so.
That's my brother. Okay.
So they say every Marine is a rifleman first.
Yeah.
And so they teach you how to shoot a rifle.
Yes.
And I never shot a rifle before going into the Marines.
Okay.
And so there were people that had been given rifles at 8, 9, 10 years old, in West Virginia and, Ohio. And so, that was the norm for them. But they thought they knew it all because they had learned at a young age, and you couldn't teach them anything.
Yes.
The people who became the best expert shooters was the one who had no bad habits.
Yes.
Because they
were disciplined. Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So this last couple minutes, let's talk about that. How, as a parent, bad habits, discipline, thinking you know it all, in reference to learning for the first time.
Yes. It's look at yourself probably for the first time in an honest way. Mm-hmm. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. This is what I'm bringing. This is what I don't have. And this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And have those conversations. Mm-hmm. And you have conversations with your child, with your mate, all the folks around, but have conversations about it. And then also, really important that once again, that parents know what is normal behavior for the child at this point in their life. So what they can do at the age of 1 is not what they're doing at age 2, which is not what they're doing at age 3, et cetera, et cetera. Age 6, 7, they start to abstract, and that brings on a different quality. So they can tie this abstract event into this abstract possibility. If I do this could happen. Before that, they don't do that. So long as I know my basic guidelines with that, and I know my child, then I can pretty much get my kids to do whatever I want. And that doesn't mean trivial things, but they certainly, your kids probably, and my kids certainly did. I played sports growing up through high school and college, so you pass that on. I had a couple of coaches that were yellers and screamers. I found, though, that my dad would correct them afterwards, because he was not a yeller screamer. And he said, you just have to block that out. He said, they can't go so far. I mean, they got to be name calling, et cetera. They have to be respectful. And he was clear about that. You don't have to accept this other stuff, because you can not play. You can decide you just as soon not play than put up with that. And with this one coach who uses the nasty language, my dad's word, I have to have a talk with him, because I really don't want you to be exposed to that. And sure enough, my dad went very quietly, much quieter than I am, talked to the coach and said, my sons and I used to be around this behavior, yellers and screamers and 4-letter words, etc. And it's disrespectful, and we could have some problems with that, and I'd prefer not to have that. Next thing I know, the coach has left me out of this litany of all these names and things that he would call, because he said I need him to be on the team.
Yeah. And that's another important reason to have a father.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you knew what you could do with that. Yes.
Well, we have to close. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yes. Thank you.
Again, Dr. Michael Connor. It is a great pleasure to have him on the show. Can we have a conversation? Again, we're talking about fatherhood and the importance of fathers being engaged in their children's lives. Until the next time, goodbye. And God bless you. That's good. That was